Everyone.
I'm sorry. Sorry
Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have a quorum of 5 members out of 8.
I'm gonna go ahead and
Okay.
take roll in a moment.
Stephanie, could you please do a roll call?
Sure. Dr. Barabecchio, Michael Billings, Christy Gonzalez, Jill Hano.
Here.
Thank you, Jill. Julie Foster Hagan,
Here.
Melinda Paradin,
Here.
Brooke Stewart, Brooke, I'm not sure if you're talking, but you are muted. If you want to unmute.
Present.
Thank you. And Lauren Womack.
Present.
And we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Before we start, I just wanted to remind you all of a few rules. For attendees, please wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking. To help the meeting run smoothly, please keep side conversations to a minimum and comments related to the topic we are discussing. Also, comment about a person's character will not be allowed. Please hold all public comments for what we're going to discuss after we do our goals. Ebony, would you please discuss the review of the budget?
Oh, wait, let's go into, sorry, let's do the highlighted part first.
Okay. Sorry about that. Council meetings that are accessible by Zoom are live streamed on YouTube. For council or committee members that are going to participate via Zoom, we need to be considered present. They must display a live feed video of their face with their first and last name. Have microphones muted unless they're called upon by the chairperson. Electronically raise their hand to request the chair recognize them to speak. Once recognized to speak by the chair, their microphone shall be turned on. After speaking, the microphone shall be returned to mute. Okay. Meeting the council's mandate. The DD Act states that councils are to engage in advocacy, capacity building, and systems change activities that promote the self-determination, independence, productivity, integration, and inclusion of people with developmental disabilities in all facets of community life. Advocacy. Activity that seeks system change by developing, improving, or changing policies and practices that affect individuals with developmental disabilities. Capacity building. Activity that seeks to enhance or increase the ability and skills of individuals, organizations, or service providers and communities to support self-determination and community inclusion of people with developmental disabilities. Systems change. The transformation or significant improvement of a system achieved through policy, capacity building, innovation and demonstration, education, and advocacy activities which further the inclusion of people with developmental disabilities in all aspects of community life. No, not yet. Okay. Okay. Ebony, would you like to review the budget, please?
Sure. Let me share my screen. Okay, so currently you all have all of your state general funds go towards FHF. And currently in the FY25 budget request, we have $7,000, $517. We are advocating for that additional $500,000 that we've received for the past 3 years. And we're hoping to get that again to bring that total up to about $1 million. In federal funding, you guys have $722,000 to spend for your contractual activities. And right now I have the contractual activities in the budget, but as we move along throughout the day and you all develop new activities, if you allocate more funding towards any activities, those numbers will change. But total, you have $722,000 to put towards your contractual activities. And just to go over a couple of things that go with the mandate, there's a restriction on the fund, so we can't supplant funds. Federal funds cannot be used to either replace or they can be used for non-federal funds. They may not be used to replace non-federal funds, sorry. And then filling in gaps, council funds can't be used to duplicate or replace services for individuals with developmental disabilities and their families. So as we move throughout the day, those numbers will change. And if you guys need to see the budget at any point, I can pull it back up. But as you are allocating funding towards your activities, those numbers will change. Does anybody have any questions about the budget?
Thank you, Ebony. Any questions before we move on? Review of recommendations from the council. Everybody should have reviewed the recommendations from the council, which was linked in the agenda you received via email.
Yeah,
It is also in your packets. Should I read that?
I can pull it.
Okay.
Give me 1 second, I can pull it. But as I'm pulling them up, you can go ahead and read them off.
Okay. Recommendations for the 2025 Planning Committee from Council. Council recommends these items for the Planning Committee to consider for goals 1 and 2. Promotion of ABLE accounts. Create a TikTok page to share more information about the DD Council. Foster parent training who care for children with developmental disabilities. Training for medical staff, including nurses, on how to work with individuals with developmental disabilities, similar to first responder training. The council recommends these items for the 2025 Planning Committee to consider for goal 3. Training on procedure of how to file a formal complaint, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, awareness, assisting professionals to diagnose and treat individuals with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Objective 3.2, speaking with chambers of commerce to educate them on hiring individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, seizure and epilepsy training for schools, compliance with current legislation. Are there any questions about these recommendations
Or discussion, we could talk about them.
or discussion?
A question, are we to review these now, or I see like we're gonna go into each goal separately? So is there discussion you want to have about these now or when we get to the appropriate goal?
We can wait until,
Yeah.
if that's okay with you. Lauren.
Right, these are just the ones that, if I'm not mistaken, that, staff recommends.
No, this is,
Oh.
the council recommended these in January.
Oh, in
These are the
January. Okay, yeah.
recommendations that you all recommended in January. And
Okay,
So as we
right.
go through the goals, you guys can make sure that you keep these in mind.
Okay.
As you are proposing new activities. Those may be some suggestions that you want to take into consideration.
Okay,
Is there any way possible that I could maybe ask for, to add another recommendation? Or that would be something I would have to wait till April to do, like I had something in mind.
Oh, no.
I was thinking about like having some type of text message system, like, during the legislature sessions, like, get like a text alert, like to text council members and also whoever want to advocate for anything. I think having some type of text message system would be very beneficial to, kind of remind people what's going on. And to get support, like text alert, like when we need to write to the members on a bill or a law that we're interested in, because I know in the school system, we use Remind, and it's kind of beneficial for parents to have that constant remind.
I think that's really great, because I don't know about everyone else, but my emails often get inundated with things, and I'm always scared I'm gonna miss something.
And is it possible not only to consider TikTok, but even looking at Instagram as well to find out more for people to find out more information about the council too?
So okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I just, as far as the social media stuff, I just wanted to remind everyone. Most or a lot of organizations that have a very active presence on social media, that are on multiple platforms, they have a full-time social media person
Yeah,
that travels to all the events, that takes the photos, that organizes things, that really, or they might be an influencer and that's their full-time job, right? We don't have that on staff.
Oh, okay.
We don't have a content creator. We don't have a full-time dedicated social media person. So that's why we share our info on social media, but we don't have I don't want to say active presence, because I feel like we put a lot of information out there, but it's not maybe as engaging as some people want it to be. So that's just to keep in mind when you start thinking of things like that, that we might not be able to live up to an expectation based on what we have on staff currently. And that's not, I don't know that we can reconfigure staffing responsibilities to free up someone just to be on social media all day long. I just wanted to throw that out there.
what do you think about the text message system? Would that be a lot of work for someone?
We'd have to look into it.
Okay,
We have used a text message system way back in the day. Not a whole lot of people signed up for it, from what I recall. And it doesn't give you the information that you get via email or
That's
that you
true,
can
yeah.
find on social media. It's kind of, hey, check your email, or hey,
Yeah, it's just like an
it'll
alert.
prompt you to go look at something, but I don't know. We'd have to look into it. I don't know if they
Yeah.
can.
And I mean, I think it definitely might be a step after we're doing the website, you know,
Mhm.
I'm excited about that. Sorry, not relevant. Do you have any comments from staff? Jill, are you raising your hand?
Um,
Okay. So, are there any other questions about recommendations? Okay, before we begin the discussion, staff created a planning checklist to help us look at the 5-year plan and activities. Let's look at that first. Stephanie, can you walk us through the checklist, please?
So I created this little planning checklist. It's in your packet. What I did was I have each of our goals and objectives listed, and I kind of broke them down. The whole idea for our 5-year plan is that these are things that we want to accomplish with our activities. So I want us to look at each of those things to see if we have accomplished them, and if not, can we make a recommendation of an activity that will accomplish that? So the second part of it is the 5-year goals, or I guess, I don't remember what I called it. The 2022 to 2026 goals and objectives. So if you look at that, I have all of the goals and not objectives, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, well, goals, objectives, and activities. So if the activity is in purple, that is a current activity that we've had either, and I have on there how long we've had it during this 5-year plan. So for example, under objective 1.1, if we look at the first bullet, the purple one, provide financial support and technical assistance for partners in policymaking and its alumni network. We have had it all between 2022 to 2024 for this 5-year plan, and that approximate cost for those years. So the cost was $90,000 for each of those years. If the cost was different for a different year, I do have that listed. And then it's a lot of documents. I know, I'm sorry. I tried to make it concise and have the most important information. But if there was a change within the past year in our planning status report, I do kind of mention that change also. So just looking at our activities, I'll give y'all a couple minutes if you want to go through those and just kind of look and see using our checklist and the activities that we have for each goal and objective, did we do what we said we were going to do with that activity? So for example, objective 1.1 on our checklist, I have increase awareness and knowledge of advocacy. So if we look in our 5-year planning document under objective 1.1, do these activities, even if it's just one of them, increase awareness and knowledge of advocacy? I would say yes. I mean, we have partners in there. LACAN is in there, roundtables, and FHF. So yes. So I'll give y'all a couple minutes if y'all want to just kind of familiarize yourself with the documents one more time, and then we can kind of go through them and maybe ones that we're not really sure if we've actually met that goal. We can have discussions on.
Okay.
I don't know. Is that a good way to do it? I'm not sure. Okay.
What does the purple mean again?
It means it's current. We're
Okay,
doing it this year too. It's a current activity.
so if it's dark, it's stopped.
Correct.
Okay.
And I tried to put like what year it ended. You'll see kind of towards the end when we get to like goal 3, there were a lot of activities that we no longer do. But I wanted to include them so you could see that when we're making those recommendations, we're not repeating the recommendations that we've done already, if that makes sense.
Can I ask one more clarifying?
Sure.
Do we need to go through each of the activities to decide if we want to recommend continuing them or not, or?
We're going to get to that in a moment
Okay.
too, yes.
Right.
This is more just for, before we get into that discussion, when we make those recommendations.
Do you want to go through each check thing?
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be really good. Yeah, I really like this structure.
Okay, so under objective 1.1, the first is to increase awareness and knowledge of advocacy. So I personally think that we do that. Like I said, we have partners in policy making, we have LACAN under that. So I do believe that we meet that. The next one is increase awareness and knowledge of voting. We do that. We are doing that initiative this year. It's the last purple one under that objective. Increase awareness and knowledge of exploitation prevention. I did put a check on it, but I don't remember.
Were you thinking of the youth leadership forum?
I think I was, yeah. The Youth Leadership Forum and, yeah, that must have been what I was thinking of, was YLF. So, I mean, we can kind of have a discussion if you think that that meets that one. So the exploitation prevention, the increased knowledge and awareness of financial stability and responsibilities. I would say would, I mean, they kind of do it in a couple of them. So things like YLF, the supported decision-making training, I believe that they had something about like money management, right? Financial stability. I'm not sure, that wasn't my contract, so.
I'm not, Joe, did you have your hand raised? Would you like to say something?
I forgot what but I know that the supporting the decision making did have money management. And as we go through, can we kind of get details on like how well each like training is doing?
We'll get to that in a moment.
That's, gonna be later on in the day. I mean, in our meeting, yeah.
When we start to talk about the goals, Joe, we'll talk about each of the current activities and how they're doing and a little bit of information about them. But if that's not what you're looking for, let me know, okay? And then under objective 1.1, the last one was increase their awareness and knowledge of decision-making. And we did have that supported decision-making training from 2022 to 2023. So for 2 years, so. For objective 1.2, I broke it down into 3 different things. The first one being self-advocacy training. So that is accomplished with People First, which is that first purple bullet under objective 1.2. Systems change, advocacy, the same. And then participation on boards and commissions. We do send out any kind of information on any open positions on different boards and commissions. So we do send that out for y'all. So that was all for goal 1. For goal 2, objective 2.1, increased access to primary and specialist providers. Yeah. Okay. I would say that yes, for that one. Also, we oversee the implementation of the community and family support system. And y'all, if I'm off base, please let me know, because these two are not my goals. So I only know what I know.
I don't know if we've actually had an activity that would allow individuals with disabilities or their families to have increased access to primary
Okay,
and specialist
Yeah.
providers, like a specific activity that would help families to do that. I don't think we have, not in this 5-year plan, maybe in previous years. Just from the activities that I'm looking at, I don't
Yeah.
feel like, just overseeing the implementation of the community and family support system would fall within that.
okay.
So that may be something you guys want to consider whenever you're looking for activities for that particular objective.
Okay.
The next one is increased access to preventative health services. And I think that kind of goes with what Ebony said. I don't
Right.
think there's one that's specific to that. The only one I see is advocate for the creation of lists. So that could be something that we look at also. And increased access to prevention of chronic diseases. And I also don't think there's one specific to that. For increased access to dental care, we did have, I don't even remember where it is, but I know we had one for dental care.
Yeah, there was
Oh, there it
advocacy
is.
around dental care for adults in the waivers. And so
Yeah.
that is now being covered. Representative Butler brought a bill that passed.
I thought so,
So the adults in the waivers, is it both for aging in no, it's just
IDD.
it's just IDD. So in the intellectual and developmental disability waivers,
Right.
for adults, dental care is now a covered service. So
We don't need to do that one.
I do feel like this one has been
I agree.
through advocacy.
Yes. The next one on the back of that checklist, is the increased access to sexual reproductive health services. For this 5-year plan, I do not think that we have, met that yet. We do, wait, make sure I'm looking at the right thing too. As you can see, one of our purple ones is to conduct research on best practices to provide appropriate accessible sex ed, but for middle and high school age students. So we do kind of have that, but we will kind of talk about that more when we get to the status report information. And then increased access to behavioral health services. We do have right now the navigating the systems, the two systems right now. So we do have an activity that's specific for that. For objective 2.2, we are looking at trained direct support professionals. 2.2. So I don't think we had one specific to support professionals. We do have one for first responders. And then other professionals who value and promote inclusive community living. They do the emergency preparedness. Would you consider that? Yeah, okay. So for that one, any kind of direct support professionals would be something that we might want to look at for a recommendation. For objective 2.3, this is our targeted disparity, which is our disadvantaged population. We have been in talks with the newly opened Office of Women's Health. Is that what it's called? I think. Yes. Yeah, I knew there was more to it and I could not think of what it was. So as you can see for that bullet, it's kind of both a little purple and not purple. It's because we conducted the research already, and right now, currently, it just starts with collaborate with them. So these are things, for example, the increased access to health services. We don't have any activity for that, as well as increased access to health education. Right now, it's just collaborate with them on those materials. For goal 3, objective 3.1, and y'all, I'm sorry if I'm going way too fast, please let me know. I just know that there's a lot of discussion to be had about the rest of it. So for objective 3.1, we're looking at education and employment, and so the things that were part of this objective were increased access to early diagnosis. I do not think that there was a specific activity that related to that.
I mean, supporting families, helping families, well, they don't really diagnose, I guess. But they could, I guess, of needs. Maybe the second one.
I would say maybe early intervention services.
Okay.
If I guess there's just not a specific goal for those things, or I'm sorry, a specific activity that meets those under this goal. And Families Helping Families is in goal 1. And I know that they do a lot and it encompasses a lot of the different aspects. But for education and employment, these are the things that they wrote for their objective 5 years ago when they came up with the goals and objectives. So the council wanted the increased access to early diagnosis, the identification of needs, the early intervention services, childcare and information, and opportunities to collaborate with educators regarding IEP or individual education planning and programming to meet the needs of their students. Just looking at the activities that we have now, I'm not sure if any of those Let me read that. The only one I could think that maybe there is the information and opportunities to collaborate with educators. There was an activity that I feel went with that one. And then,
Second bullet as including specific areas, issues, which could be spun in a way to cover those things.
okay.
Just have to,
Reword it.
it might be more benefit to be more specific of exactly what are those special things that you want to cover, and what you want to do about those. So if you want to identify all those things instead of having, because sometimes a basic information is going to work as long as we have direction of what should be done in it. But if we have very specific areas we need to focus on, it might be better to break up those bullets into multiple actions instead of just a blanket statement.
Mhm.
So we can have a little more direction of what we're looking at.
Sounds good.
And then, the last little bit, which is objective 3.2, is really focused just on the education. The employment part of this goal. The increased employment outcomes upon transitioning from secondary educational settings. I don't think we had one specific to that.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry.
No,
I would
go
say
ahead.
that, I mean, the
Oh, I guess
activity
there
that
is
you all
one.
had with LaPi, although that is post-secondary inclusive education, it did lead to employment outcomes. I think the employment rate for LaPi was at 75%, if I'm not mistaken. Brenton, do you remember that? 75% for individuals that went through LaPi to get employment?
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I think there was a disclaimer on that of maybe those that actually wanted employment.
Mhm.
Because I think there were some that opted to either volunteer for a non-paying job or just opted not to work because they didn't have to. But I think it was somewhere in the 70s.
Yeah, I feel like it was. So, I mean, in a way, I feel like that activity probably helped to meet this objective.
Yeah.
If you all want to look at it like that. But if you're saying just straight out of secondary educational setting into employment, you all haven't had an activity like specific to that.
There was this one in 2022, advocate for information on post-secondary opportunities and access to LRS pre-employment transition services within school districts for all students with disabilities. It's the
Do we know
third from the
whatever,
bottom on that one.
do we know whatever became of that?
I think it was lumped into
It may have
the LaPi.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
Because we only did it for 1 year, so it must have been
Okay.
lumped in somewhere. Since kind of like what Brenton was saying earlier, some things we don't need it to be super
Yeah.
specific. It could just kind of be the umbrella of it as long as we know what direction you want to go in. So that's what I think about that one, but I agree with Ebony, like, I think it was at least hit on during the LaPi activities.
So at least we have something in each.
And then the last one, access to employment opportunities inclusive of services from highly qualified employment support providers and increased competitive and integrated community opportunities from employers. Sorry, that was a mouthful, but that was kind of all of the last thing put together. So there were a couple activities that were done. Like the What am I trying to say? The certification program, would that be considered one of them or no? I just want to make sure I
So
know.
yeah, that was
Okay.
building the capacity of the employers.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, towards the end of that particular contract, we couldn't find learning partners for the individuals that were enrolled to get the certification. And so we pretty much discontinued it because we contracted with the ARC and unfortunately they weren't able to get the learning partners that they needed in order to complete the certification. But there was the employment seminars that you all did throughout from FY22 to FY23, which I would say probably hits that activity
Mhm.
or that
I
objective.
agree.
Open it up to comment now. I know we kind of discussed it as we went, but does anybody, want to comment on anything?
Is, the work employment, is that have anything specifically do? I mean, I know it's all right for me to speak.
Yes, of course.
Does that have to do with the people that's, strictly disabled, that's dealing with strictly people that's disabled?
Are you talking about the employment initiatives, Eric? Yes, so the focus is on individuals with disabilities.
Would probably be developmental disabilities, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be more of a,
My thing with that is, you know, saying that you're not getting a lot of people that's, y'all can't want to participate with the, working problem.
I think that was in a previous initiative that we had where it started out one way and then towards the end, we started not having as much participation.
Okay, but my thing, and I understand that, thank you for saying that with me. My thing is with people with disabilities, with the employment thing, it's a lot of afraid to get out of there because they have foundations with, they have something stable. And then to go out and try to do work, they're scared for something to be taken, if I'm making any sense to y'all. And I think that's why we're not getting what we're looking for to push them out there to do the work thing. Because if I take this, I'm gonna lose this. But if I gain this, I'm getting more. But I'm kind of scared to stick my feet.
Talking about losing benefits,
Right.
things.
Right, so I'm kind of scared to get the pie taken. But if I get half of the pie taken, but I get more on the other end. But then if I don't get more on that other end, my thing is I can't get that back as quick as I can. If y'all understand what I'm saying on that part.
Julie?
So just in response to that, just for sharing purposes, the Department of Health is currently the ARC of Louisiana and some other advocates asked that we relook at something called the Medicaid buy-in program. And it is specifically for people with any disability. So it's not just focused on developmental disabilities who have a certain income in order to not lose their benefits. If they show they have these disabilities, then they can buy into Medicaid. So there is a small fee you pay, but then you keep your Medicaid benefits or waiver benefits. Prior to Governor Edwards, there was a change in that program that it's still there, but the income is pretty low. And so they are currently looking at whether we can increase that income back again so that those folks, who were previously able to participate in the program. And it's a lot of like the folks that are on the SPAS program that Kelly talks about during the council meetings. But just so you're aware, the department is looking at bumping that income back up so that those folks who potentially would want to work but are afraid about, they still might need help with different things that are offered through Medicaid would be able to buy into Medicaid and not lose
So
those
there
benefits.
is basically looking at that, so it won't be afraid to get out there, that's,
Yeah, the main thing is there's a fiscal impact tied to it, so they're just having to evaluate how much it'll cost, and do we need to ask the legislature during this session, for some additional money, or is it something that we can do within the current budget? And all of those things are being discussed now. The new leadership at the Department of Health is very much on board with the need for that program, though, and are trying to explore not adding it back because it didn't go away, but moving that income up again.
I don't mean to hold it up, but I have a lot of questions on it. Is it that they have to meet the standards that they have to have certain people that is disabled on a job thing, or is that true?
I think it is true they have to have disabilities, but I don't know it's not just developmental disabilities, and I don't know what that criteria is. I can try to find out and let you know before, but I don't know right off the top of my head.
Any other questions or comments?
You guys mentioned the previous activity with learning partners. Correct, did you not have enough people who were willing to participate, like to do trainings and things? Was that the challenge?
So for the certification, I know that the individuals that were enrolled in that program, they had to have learning partners, like job learning partners. And so the ARC was having a very difficult time trying to find those learning partners. And so due to that, they just recommended that the council just discontinue the activity. And I think that they went through LRS to try and find learning partners, and there just
No,
wasn't
I
any.
misunderstood what y'all meant by learning partners. but,
Okay.
I know we're also in the Baton Rouge area chamber, and they've been talking a lot about working with employers to increase their capacity to have, people with disabilities. And I was just gonna say, if that is something that is continued here, that would be something Epilepsy Alliance Louisiana would be interested in participating. We do get lots of calls about discrimination, and usually I found it's on the employer side, a lack of understanding of what epilepsy is and what it isn't, and how to appropriately accommodate, the individuals. And so when you said learning partner, that's more of what I was thinking of, trying to work with employers, but y'all were working with individuals with disabilities, correct, for this activity?
Yeah, and I can get more information, because this wasn't my actual contract, and so I'm not as familiar with it, but yeah, I can get more information.
I have a question for staff. I'm on the Louisiana Rehabilitation Council, and there's something called LMS, which is like a learning platform. Would that fit in the budget if Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council got a subscription to this, and we could put use that for our trainings? It's like a learning module, and I use it for continuing education. Like you go through the different modules and you could get like a printout or things like that. It just seems like it might be a really good way to hit a lot of these, and cost effective to hit a lot of these things and to leave them out for people to be able to, even if the initiative's over, it might be better than just YouTube, but I don't know. This is just a suggestion. I don't know if that would fit with our budget or anything like that. But then if we contract it out, we could say, hey, if you do the training, you can use this platform or whatever. I don't know. I just really like it. It's a newer thing, and I think LRS is going to use it for their counselor trainings.
What's it called again?
And I have to get the I know it's learning module systems, but it's LMS. And a lot of people are moving toward it, like employers for their training and things like that. And I didn't know if maybe, I don't know how expensive it is. But to get more input, you know, from the CAN members and things like that. I didn't know if we could get like a subscription to like Survey Monkey or something like that. Where we might be able to do like a survey every year, like. Just so people feel like they have more of a say and we could see where, you know, just people not on the council, but what, you know, I know the CAN does their stuff as well. But it would be anonymous and we could see the trends of where is the need? So I don't, these were just two things that I thought of. But that might be for next year if we need to do some research on it.
Sounds good.
Because I see a lot of this is educating and I would hate for the contract to be over and then we lose that. It would be so nice to be able to have that as something permanent.
And that's all I have for that part. So.
Okay, we want to go ahead and move on. Do we have anybody on camera that would like to make a comment before we move on? I think we're good. Where am I now? We kind of did that.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone should have received the documents that were attached in the email. On the planning status report, there are descriptions of all activities. Also, staff gave recommendations on every current activity. Those activities could include funding changes, discontinuing an activity, or continuing an activity. Each recommendation includes a justification from staff. The committee does not have to accept the recommendations. Let's begin on goal 1. We will go, do we need to take a break or? Oh, wait, no. Okay.
Just let me know, we're gonna go through them on each of the groups, so.
Okay.
You wanna start, Hannah?
Oh, sure.
If you want.
Okay. Thank you, Hannah.
All right. Activity 1.1.1 is partners in policymaking. Do I need to go over what that is or just go straight to staff recommendations?
You can go over what it is. We have a lot of new members present and I don't know who's watching on YouTube. So yeah, you can go over what it is.
Sounds good. Partners in Policymaking is a national leadership training program for people with developmental disabilities and parents of young children with developmental disabilities. It provides the most current knowledge about disability issues and develops the competencies necessary for effective advocacy to influence public policy at all levels of government. The 2024 PIP class, that's Policies and Partners in Policymaking, called PIPs, in case you're wondering. The 2024 PIP class has finished January and February and will be completing the sessions by June, 6 sessions, once a month. PIP will continue to complete sessions in person for fiscal year 2025. And we usually accept at least 20 participants, parents and or self-advocates in the class. So this year, the staff is recommending that we can not only continue this activity, but we increase the funding to $100,000 for FY25 due to increased costs associated with inflation, hotel expenses, travel, etc. We've had the same budget. There was a little typo. It was since FY20. So for the last 5 years, we've been at the 90,000. And as y'all probably know, in the last 5 years, things are a lot more expensive.
Yes.
And especially with when you're talking about traveling, hotel costs, food, mileage reimbursement, etc. which is why we're recommending that we increase that funding.
But we are on, staff recommendations. I'm sorry, I had to take a phone call.
Yes, you're okay. Yes, we're on staff recommendations.
Sorry.
No problem. I love questions from Jill. And just adding to that, just for y'all's knowledge, we do already only reimburse participants a portion, not even half of what the state allows for mileage. So we're already trimming that down. We already only give them 31 cents a mile. And we also only budget for 2 per room. Each person doesn't get their own room. If they want, they have to pay the additional cost. So we've already been using those as some cost saving measures up to this point. But we're noticing this year, things are a little bit extra tight. We weren't only able to accept 3 other participants that were in the northern regions because we couldn't afford the additional travel costs associated. This year we have, which is a good thing, we've had a good bit of participants from the north, which just costs a little bit more money because they're driving a lot further. And we also have a lot more participants that receive stipends, which is another fluctuating cost that we don't know till they start whether or not they're going to need stipends for their workers for the weekend. And we have a limit on that as well. So we're not just, carte blanche. But we're just noticing costs are just going up and it's harder to accommodate the amount of people that the activity requires us to.
I have a question too. We don't have as many council members from the north either, do we? You know, Evan? I know when we were trying to do the different regions.
If I'm not mistaken, we have one person from.
So yeah, this is even more important to get them involved, I would think.
Yeah, to hear from these more rural areas, it's, we of course really appreciate having them as partners because we don't want just the people close to Baton Rouge. We want to get statewide and we got to be able to pay for them to come statewide, so. Court.
Do you want to just do all of them?
Yeah.
And then we'll talk?
If that's okay with everybody, we'll just go through them all and then, okay.
All right, so the next one is, excuse me, good morning. The next one is 1.1.2.
Question.
Oh, sorry about that, Jill.
I'm sorry, I don't know these protocols. I can't even see where I raised my hand. But Hannah, can you go over again what are the PIP costs we have?
That while we're asking for the additional funds or just in general?
Just in general.
Okay. Well, with TIP, we cover professional services, so we cover speakers coming in for a majority of our sessions. We have national speakers that speak at other PIPs. They come and speak at ours. We have mileage reimbursements. We have the hotel costs, meeting rooms, food, because we really want these parents and these self-advocates to be able to attend without coming out of pocket. Obviously, you'd probably lose a lot of participants if they're having to pay. So we cover basically as much as we can to get them there. And that's why we cover an additional, we do $100 for if they don't have a waiver, then we cover $100 for their worker for that weekend so that they're able to attend.
Oh,
What'd you say, Jill? I'm sorry.
what do you mean waiver?
When it comes to, correct me if I'm wrong, the parents, when they're leaving their children with a disability, we want them to have somewhat assistance paying for their care for their child while they're out. So if they have a waiver that covers that cost, then that's cool. For those that don't have a waiver that covers the cost, we pay $100 toward it.
So like the children's choices waiver, Jill, if they don't have children's choice or some other type of waiver service that would pay for their worker to come in the home, then Partners is covering the cost up to $100 per week.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank
I have a question. You're saying that they're trying to cut down. So how would that be if they have caregivers? You say y'all cut it down to 2 people to the room, what if it's not a caregiver?
What if it's,
Not a caregiver that's coming with them, and y'all saying, if I got the question misunderstood, but if y'all just cutting it down to 2 people to a room, but what if it's not a caregiver?
we always allow, if the person is coming but has a caregiver with them, a worker, then they have the room just with them and their worker. This is how Partners has kind of always run, that we've done 2 to a room. So I was just mentioning it so that y'all knew we weren't just spending money like crazy. That's already a cost saving measure that we do.
No, but I understand that part, but I'm saying, if they're not a physically caregiver and they come
Along.
with that person,
They can't.
That they're not allowed to bring, unless it's a worker, they're not allowed to bring family members with them for the weekend.
all right, so
Gotcha.
that person would be responsible for their room if they do.
Yes, yeah, we like to make the goal for them to really be able to focus on the program, to build relationships with the other participants. And so we've noticed if they have other people there, they're not as focused on this group, they're,
So
chatting.
I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're okay.
So let me get this understanding, even though if they don't have the service, but they need the assistance, but they don't want to share that particular room with that person, would they still have to be true to the person or?
No, they're welcome to have their own room. They just pay a portion of the additional cost. So they don't pay for a full night, but if they want their own room, they pay, I think it's like an extra $50 or $60 a night to have their own room.
And it's just one night.
It's just one, yeah, it's just a Friday night.
It's just one night.
Mhm.
Okay, got you, thank you.
No problem.
Good.
On to me now.
Up to you, Barb.
All right, so the next activity that we're going to discuss is activity 1.1.2. That's our LACAN activity that I monitor, and it's Louisiana's Council Activity Network. So basically with that activity, it's comprised of a group of individuals that assist the council in pushing their agenda forward. Year after year. So the leaders, we have leaders located all across the state of Louisiana, a total of 9 that cover 10 different regions. And basically what they do is assist in providing training opportunities on advocacy. And also they try to connect their members with legislators to discuss the agenda items. Just to give you guys some results from last year, we had 16 action alerts. With 2,266 actions taken, 9 yellow shirt days, with 134 people in attendance and 24 testimonies provided. A total of 84 formal legislative visits, and 49 of those were with key committee members. So last year we did request an increase from 215,000. And you guys did approve us to go up to 240,000. So we're just asking to kind of keep it the same this year. And that's it. Any questions?
How was the budget on that one? We were pretty good with the increase.
So,
Yeah, we're in that current budget.
Okay, but we're on target, right? Okay.
yes, so everything's good with the budget. It actually, the increase allowed us to be able to provide bonuses, to kind of, I guess, balance out the increase in pay wages to be more competitive. And actually, last year during the time that we discussed the options of increasing, we didn't have, a leader in Region 9. So now we
Okay.
have, yes, now we have a leader in all regions, and everything's going well.
Okay.
No issues or concerns.
Any other? Guess we'll keep trucking.
All right.
So the next activity will be 1.1.3. So that activity is for advocacy events like our legislative roundtables, any trainings. So the Lacan leader trainings, we normally have a summer training for the Lacan leaders and a fall training. We haven't been doing the fall training as much just because sometimes our legislative agenda has been delayed in getting finalized. But we do put money towards trainings there, and just services and policies that will benefit individuals with developmental disabilities. So that particular funding has been at 30,000 for a while, and we recommend that it stays at its current funding.
Oh, God. Oh, I'm not muted.
You had a
Don't
question?
like that.
Any next?
All right, the next activity is activity 1.1.4. That's our Families Helping Families Center activity. And actually, the centers provide information, referrals, training opportunities, and they also support individuals and families in their in their time of need. Last year's results, over 40,000 contacts were made to centers asking for information. 3,000 referrals provided, over 400 trainings with more than 8,500 individuals trained, and over 28,000 peer-to-peer supports were made. So we're just asking for this particular item to continue to be covered under the state general funds. And that's it for that one. Any questions? We're rolling through.
Activity 1.1.5 is to share videos and other visual materials featuring information important to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. The council staff shares videos and other materials from 23 East, formerly O'Neill Communications, from the past 3 years on social media. The videos are also on the council's website and YouTube page for the public to utilize. The staff recommends discontinuing this activity for FY25. We feel as though it's already covered in 1.1.6 to share this information. I don't think it's needed twice. That's our recommendation. Any questions? All right, I think the next one's also me. 1.1.6 is produce and provide information important to individuals with intellectual disabilities and their families through a variety of electronic and social media, council website, Facebook, LADDC News. The council continues to provide information through a variety of electronic and social media. The number of subscribers, followers, and likes grow daily. We recommend to continue this activity for FY25. Any questions?
Okay, so the next activity is 1.1.7, and of course, we recommend continuing this particular activity because we do share information about how council members and even public members can participate on other boards and advisory councils such as SEEP. We just shared an LADDC news about seat membership, and we do share things about other advisory councils if there are openings, or LRC that Lauren mentioned, the Louisiana Rehabilitation Council, and other boards and commissions that are not allowed, but have individuals with developmental disabilities on their councils. So we recommend continuing this particular activity.
Oh, Kathy, would you like to say something?
Yes, thank you. As almost a 6-year member of the OCD State Advisory Committee, I would like to recommend that one of those committees that you advertise membership for would be the regional advisory councils. There are a few regions in OCDD that are struggling to find members. There's information on OCDD's page under their About Us tab that talks about the SACs and the RACs. And there's a form for people to apply for their regional advisory council, and that's with the LGEs.
Thank you. Okay, moving on.
Okay. Activity 1.1.8 is the Louisiana Youth Leadership Forum. It's an innovative overnight training program for high school aged individuals with developmental and other disabilities. It includes career awareness, leadership development information to assist young people with disabilities in reaching their full potential. YLF is also receiving $15,000 from the Department of Education and may receive funding from the Louisiana Rehabilitation Services, depending on the delegates selected to participate in YLF. That amount, if any, will be shared after the selection of the delegates. YLF is in the second year of a 5-year reoccurring grant from Enbridge for transportation and meals. YLF also received an additional grant for housing and meals through the Brown Foundation. It will take place June 20th through 23rd at the University of Louisiana in Lafayette. For FY24, YLF is accepting 14 delegates, including 1 high support camper, and will take place over 3.5 days. The staff recommends continuing this activity at its current budget for FY25. The budget was increased from $30,000 to its current $45,000 in FY24. And in 23, they accepted 13 delegates and had a 3-day program. Any questions?
All right, so the next activity is activity 1.1.9. That's our disability voting rights activity. This is actually a new activity. We started back in October of 2023. It provides training opportunities on voting rights and the different processes for individuals with disabilities. The current results, they have had 1 web-based training and 2 in-person trainings with a total of 28 self-advocates to participate. The most recent training opportunity was last Friday in Region 9, and I'll have those numbers for our next council meeting. But we are asking that it continue at $30,000 for fiscal year 25. That's it.
Okay.
This one's me, sorry. For activity 1.2.1, the council continues to provide technical assistance and training opportunities to strengthen the self-advocacy network. So this is the People First contract. We recommend continuing this activity at its current budget, and that budget is $25,000. And I'll read this one too. Activity 1.2.2, to provide information and support for participation of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families, and cross disability and culturally diverse leadership coalitions and advisory bodies. We continue to provide information and support participation in cross disability and culturally diverse leadership coalitions and advisory bodies. Council members currently serve on the Able Account Advisory Council, the Advisory Council on Student Behavior and Discipline, the Voting Rights Task Force, and the Post-Secondary Inclusive Education Advisory Council. We recommend continuing this activity for 2025.
If it doesn't have a cost, it's just. What does that mean?
If it doesn't, it's just not a contract that we have. So like,
Okay.
for example, this one, we just send out that information.
Okay, all right,
Mhm.
okay. Okay,
So if it has a cost, we have a
it's just on there,
contract.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, next.
I'll read this one too. 1.2.3 is to support council members' participation in training and educational opportunities and council leadership participation in national training, networking events, and advocacy opportunities. Council members' participation in training and educational opportunities will continue to be supported. Staff will ensure council members are made aware of opportunities to participate when available. So we will, let you know, send out an LADDC news, those kinds of things. We do recommend that you continue this activity, but our federal partners, I guess, say that this cannot have any money attached to it. So that approximate cost, we can no longer have a cost attached to it. It comes from a different budget. It can't have this cost attached to it. I don't know how else to word that. It would be like a reimbursement, kind of like your travel and your like hotel rooms for the council meeting. So it would still be covered for those council members. We just can't have an activity cost for it.
So that amount would need to be removed.
Correct.
And so if any council members were interested, you would follow the same protocol that's listed in the bylaws, where you would seek a stipend request and fill out the request for whatever event it is, either a conference or whatever it is. And then the executive committee would look at that request and either approve it or deny it. So.
And we'll go on to goal 2.
Or do you want just?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm so sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Oh, my goodness. That was the one that had the idea. So, we can discuss goal 1. So any recommendations from the committee?
You want to limit it to what these, do we need to vote or something on what the staff recommendations are and then open the floor for new ideas or?
No, I think it's all together. Once you guys have a draft, then we will vote on the draft at the end all together.
So you have a new idea. But, and this is not a fully thought out idea, so y'all bear with me.
Neither were mine, so just,
But one of the things, and I do think our OCDD office could potentially partner with the council on, and I'm going to try to say this the best way I can, because it's not, I think families have a very important role in providing us feedback. But when we've done a lot of different focus groups and we have a lot of different advisory groups and things like that. One of the things that's very noticeable to me is that I don't have a lot of people with lived experience or people with developmental disabilities themselves asking to be a part of these groups. It's most always families. And so one of the goals that I have that I wanted to bring here, because I thought it might be good to partner with the council on, is establishing whether that's some kind of advisory group or my office. I don't really, like I said, it's not fully fleshed out. But in some way, I want to have some opportunity, not like I'm kicking families out, but an opportunity where it's only people with lived experience and people with developmental disabilities themselves that are on this group, and help have that voice. Because sometimes I feel like we don't always hear that voice, because again, families are very important, and I'm not trying to say that that's not true. But I want to be able to make sure that people with disabilities, especially when we're talking about things like self-determination and, autonomy, like that, they have an opportunity to have a voice. So I'm throwing that out there to see what you guys think about that. If that's something that may be better just for my office to figure out, that's fine. But it just seemed like while we were doing the planning committee, because that's something that's top of my mind, I would see if I really first, I guess, want to know if people agree that that's a need. And if so, any thoughts on how we might partner? And I don't know that it would have a cost associated with it, but still just partner on what that might look like.
I'm trying to figure out when you're saying not, and excuse me again, I'm not just trying to jump in. I'm just trying to figure out when you say you're not trying to keep families out. Are you basically trying to say you want the people with disability to have a competency bars to speak the way they want to speak up?
That and an opportunity. So we have different types. So I just started a self-direction advisory group, for example. And on that self-direction advisory group, I didn't have anybody. We had 300 people who said, hey, I want to be part of this group. Not one of those 300 people were people who direct their own services. I did go out and try to convince a couple of people to join who direct their own services. We also, like when we were doing all the post-PHE informational sessions, and we were trying to decide where is our developmental disability system going to go. We had no self-advocates who were part of that group, and we had over 700 people asked to be a part of that group. So one of the things I'm trying to figure out is it might be that I just need to figure out how do I get people with disabilities involved in the groups we have, or it might be that there's some separate opportunity. I don't really know. I just know that I do want to make sure that I'm having opportunities to hear from people themselves who are receiving services. Not to, again, I'm not trying to, what I'm saying is I'm not trying to negate the family's feedback, but I want to hear from people themselves as much as I hear from families,
But my thing as a person with a disability is, and I keep going back, and I keep going back to this, is a lot of them is scared. A lot of them is scared to speak out, because if they feel to speak out the way they want to speak out and to say what they want to say, I'm scared that if I speak strongly or what I feel and speak strongly how I look at things, I'm gonna be scared that I'm talking too strong to get something taken from me. I want y'all to hear what I'm saying when I say taken. They scared. Okay, if I show you what I feel, and if I show you how I feel, oh wow, I'm gonna get this taken because I'm setting a boundary that I got to act a certain way to get what I need. So I'm scared to speak that way. And when they got the determination to speak, I'm saying, okay, I'm speaking, but what happened back here that I didn't spoke? So if I speak this way, is she gonna put a pen on me? And I'm not, is she gonna write something on me and say, okay, she and he is capable to speak like this, so what's gonna be taken?
So how do we overcome that, I guess? So is there by
They
having
need
a safe
insurance.
space?
They need insurance that it's not like that. They need assurance that it's all right for you to step up and speak the way you speak. But I'm not gonna take nothing from you. If they don't have that insurance, as a person that's with a disability, they're gonna push away. So they're gonna push one out there to speak. Hey, Eric, I'm gonna use me. You be pushed out there and speak for us, but I'm not gonna put my name on that paper because I'm scared. Take that chance to step in that wall, but I'm scared. Take that chance to walk around the wall and speak to her, but I'm scared. You understand where I'm coming from?
I do. What I'm trying to think about is how do I give them the safe space to do
To
that?
show them. To show them, hey, I'm here to help you and not to hurt you or take nothing. If I'm making sense to you and everybody in this room, to show them. You could talk it, but if you don't show them how to walk it, I'm scared.
And I think that's part of what Partners in Policy Making tries to do.
And I was even gonna say the Youth Leadership Forum. So that is designed to help younger individuals develop their voice early so that they're not afraid to speak up. But just to speak to what you asked about, Julie, I think having separate stakeholder groups with just individuals with developmental disabilities or disabilities in general would be helpful because of the issue that he brings up. I mean, I'll just be honest, sometimes I'm afraid to speak up in certain meetings. So I think, yeah, just allowing that safe space for them to have a place where they can come and talk about their concerns outside of the stakeholder groups that y'all already have established, I think will be helpful.
As a person with a disability, having an invisible disability, I don't receive any kind of services. But a lot of my clients obviously do, and they're terrified to speak up because, as this gentleman stated, they're afraid they're gonna lose their services. So if you could have a meeting where it's a safe space and they don't have to maybe sign in, or they're just there to air the services they would like to see or the things they feel they need instead of being told what they need would be helpful. I know I have this lovely little fuzzy thing over here, so people know that I have a disability, but I'm treated differently when I go places, not always nicely, but it's not always wonderful. But I'm lucky enough to work for an organization that accepts me as I am. That's not the case for the majority of our clients, and they're terrified to admit to their employers that they have a disability. So I know the struggle that you have. So just a safe space, you're saying that can talk about what they need. Not maybe sign in or not registration.
Okay, so then there's not not asking you to go on record with your name, but this is just a place to go. Okay.
One of the things I'm thinking about is, I mean, you might have to approach it twofold because you don't want to isolate anybody. So I don't want us to say, oh, we're just going to have this one committee where we can send all the people with the disabilities. While that might help in some instances, we also need to figure out how to get them on other advisory groups with their peers or other family members. One of the things that we did in, I think it was one of our previous relationship, sexual education trainings, was you would go in and you'd have a class for our self-advocates, you would have a class for parents and family members, and then there was a point where they would be together. So you'd have two paths that would merge at the end or at the beginning or something. And so that might be an option of having these two separate groups that then end up collaborating together at the end, where someone on staff, or whoever's running the group says, hey, these are the ideas we got from both groups, and then maybe that'll help. Because, you know, it might get people comfortable speaking on their own in this group. So maybe they'll be more comfortable speaking out once the group comes together because they've had that safe space, but we're still engaging them with everyone. That might be something to consider.
Julie, sign me up. I'll do your focus. No, I'm serious. Your focus, because I'm getting service with self-direct. And I was doing the research and it seems like that is where a lot of the states are moving to beef that up. But another thing, like, that's why I do what I feel like, that's why I feel like I'm supposed to do this, because a lot of people specifically with developmental disabilities may have autism, or they may not be able to, you know, to speak for themselves. But I think too, like, maybe, and I don't even know if this would work, but if you had disability rights Louisiana as part of it, you know, I'm sure I don't know if they have any staff that has a disability too, because that would be kind of like a safe space, like that could go over, like, you know, legally you have a right to speak and things like that. And I mean, maybe just like you said, like the surveys or things like that. I don't know if there's any kind of like blog or anything where you don't have to register, like you could just leave comments or things like that. But yeah, I mean, that's why I feel like I need to do this, is because, I mean, even with what I do for work employment, people are afraid to go to work because they don't want to lose their benefits. And my parents even told me, like, don't get a job without health insurance, you know, because it's like you're barely living with what you have, but you're always afraid, like, you don't want to chance something that you're afraid to lose. Like, you're surviving. So like, I guess a lot of my clients, like, they're afraid if they go to work, they're going to lose a little bit that they have and then wind up worse than they are before, you know, and that's terrifying. You know, and hopefully, like, the parties and policymaking, I mean, maybe you could speak to that, or, you know, recruit some of the younger people too, or even at LRS, if you put, with the clients, I know they'd give them the CAP information, but maybe if you ask them if you could, you know, put something in there, you know, for people with, in the LRS mailers or something about, Lo, we want to start hearing from you. You know, what are ways we can do better or things like that.
Okay, thank you.
So those are just some thoughts.
And maybe just, you know, let them know that if they express their opinion about the situation, that there will be no act of retaliation, because I think a lot of them fear retaliation for voicing their opinions. If they could have some reassurance that no act of retaliation will occur for voicing their opinions. And that, you know, it'll be kept confidential.
And another thing, I know y'all probably say this young man that speak, but the voice is spoken, and the only way it's spoken is by being word. It's speaking truthful and facts. Some people could be around family, and family can lock them into one system, and it makes you feel like, okay, watch how you speak. How you say things, because you do stuff. And also, the people need us too to know where how to live it. The only way you could talk it if you can't talk it if you haven't walked it. And if you don't walk it, then you could talk it. And that's just true facts. And just like I said, they scared because some ways they've been carried. They've been taught, hey, watch how you speak. Hey, you with family, watch how you doing this. Because not just that person that's living on what they have, some families is living on what they have. So it's a thin line, and just like Brad said, and I hope I'm calling the thing right, you just can't separate here to there, here to this. It's a lot on the table.
Yeah, and I apologize if it came across that way. I wasn't trying to say I'm kidding families. I just feel like I need to hear from people with disabilities more. And I agree, there's some people who maybe have trouble having a voice and need and rely on their families to be, you know, the voice for them. So I'm not trying to negate that in any way, shape, or form. Just really, truly trying to say, I want to have more opportunities for those people who actually live it and walk it. And I think you guys have given me some great ideas to bring back and think about.
Yeah, because it's hard. It's like a lot of people that are in the positions of power too are not people with disabilities, you know, or the staff or things like that, you know. So, I mean, that's something as well, you know. It's difficult because I don't know of any other group where it's like the majority of people are not people with the actual, like if a women's group, you wouldn't have a man coming out, woman. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't know any other organizations, and just by the nature of it, it's kind of is that way, you know, but I'm excited that you see that, and I hope, you know, I wish you luck. Anything I can do to help, like, I'd be.
And I've started seeing what they do. Some other states have different groups. I was in Portland, Oregon, for example, at a conference, and it was a state director conference. But they have such a strong self-advocacy group in Oregon that there were tons of self-advocates at the state direct. You know, they were wanting to see what's going on at the state level. And so that and I started talking to one of the ladies that sort of leads that effort. And it really got me to thinking, you know, how do we help facilitate that? That's what I'm trying to do, is figure out ways that I can help to facilitate that. Because we do, I mean, as the assistant secretary in OCDD, I value input from every single group that I get. But I do just want to make sure that we have opportunities for everyone's voice to be at the table. So.
Well, that might be I don't know if we could make that a suggestion as one of our action items. I don't know exactly how we would.
Now.
Raise that, yeah.
But maybe that we just think about this, as opposed to it being a specific action that we follow, but I defer to you guys on that.
Okay, are we ready to move? Oh, somebody had a question? Oh, Kathy?
Yes, thank you. Julie, as a SAC member, I think this will be something good to bring up at our next SAC meeting, but my suggestion would be to reach out to people first. Isn't that what they are for? They're self-advocates, so maybe we even need our RACs to start reaching out to people first to try to encourage more membership, and, you know, being active in participating in focus groups and so on and so forth.
Thank you.
And next.
Well, do we need to talk about any of the other recommendations from the?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, there's a chat.
Oh, is there, are we doing chats or just?
I think we're doing hands raised now.
Oh, we're doing hands right now, but thank you for letting us know, Joe.
I'm banned.
No, you're not. Okay, do you want to keep going or?
So I guess, do we need to work on, like, if you want to add any activity for the goal, are we putting that on the action plan now? Okay, yeah, so any activities that y'all want to add for this goal is what we need to talk about, any ones that we want to get rid of.
Are we doing that at the end or we're doing this right now?
We're gonna do it for each goal. So we'll
Okay.
start with this goal, since we just went through all of that and it's kind of fresh now.
Okay. I'm sorry, could you say that louder of what we just?
Oh,
took?
yeah.
Just so everyone knows, I want to phrase it right.
So any activities that we want to recommend to the full council for goal 1, this is where we kind of write those activities. Any of the recommendations that staff or council members gave, those kind of go in here also. So if, for example, and I'm just giving an example, if we wanted to, 1.1.5 was the one that staff recommended discontinuing. If the committee had decided that they want to discontinue that, this is the place that we need to say that, so that way we can get rid of it on the action plan, because at the end, we're going to go through the full action plan and make sure that we have addressed everything that needs to address. And if there's anything from the committee, the council recommendations. So for example, like the foster parent training, or, well, I guess I would go more for goal 2, or able accounts, or adding that TikTok or Instagram kind of thing. I know we kind of spoke on that, but if those things needed to be added to any of the activities, that's what we need to talk about right now.
You want me to talk?
Go for it.
To be quiet. I agree with discontinuing, because our office is also working on some different materials that we get out, different informational. And we had partnered on some of those, but we're also trying to do more, like just 10 or 15 informational sessions about our services, breaking it down, because a lot of times we say, oh, just go look at that on our website, buried 10 pages deep is where you can find that. But just trying to figure out what's the information people need and doing small tidbits that we can get out and get recorded. I did have a question about, Brenton, you mentioned you don't have, is there the ability to do a contract with someone for social media activities? I have no clue how much that costs, or if that's even like a feasible. If folks feel like that's something that's important, is that an option to contract that out?
It's an option.
Yeah, I mean, I have opinions. I don't know if this would be the place to share them. So as far as hiring someone, that gets complicated, as you know, as far as getting positions and things of that nature approved. I would say contracting is an option. I guess you'd have to weigh the options of best bang for your buck. Like if we are having a presence on social media, is that really going to change the system in some sort of way? Like, how impactful would that be to people's lives, I guess, is how I would think about
Or how it would feel.
And it might be, I don't know. I just, a lot of people, they want things delivered to you in a fun and helpful manner and all that. So is doing something like that really going to change the system like we're looking to do would be the big question. And if so, then great. Yeah. And then how much does that cost? I have no idea. But we'd have to know specifically that it's going to be impactful and we're not just spending money for maybe doing a little bit more than what we already do, like just sharing of information. But so that would be something to consider.
I would just toss into something after it was brought up in January when we were trying to kind of brainstorm. A challenge that I was thinking we may face if we went that direction was going to be finding someone with the expertise as, you know, a content creator that also has the expertise
It's important.
to do videos and snippets. Because we found, I think, in the past, if we're using someone who doesn't know anything about what we do, then you kind of hit a wall that they're trying to create stuff. They don't know what they're creating. They don't know really what is needed. And, you know, you tend to not get as much out of it if the person doesn't have that knowledge base. It's, you know, because as a whole, social media content creators, you know, if they're working for stores, they can have they know everything about marketing for a store, you know. So that would just be something to consider, is the challenge of finding the right contractor if that ends up being an activity.
I guess the most important question here is, I guess the way I was looking at it is if you wanted to make people more aware of the council and what they do for the community. Because I can admit I have a special need brother and I didn't really know about this council until I went on Facebook. You know, that's how I found out about the council, because not a whole lot of people know about it. And so that's the way I was looking at it, to make people be more aware this exists, like seeing it more like a marketing strategy to let people know, hey, I could, you know, learn more about the council and what they do for the community.
So food for thought, one of the things you may do this year with a goal to looking towards next year, they do have groups that could do, if marketing is the goal, it may be that the council could do like a one-time contract with someone to do a marketing assessment that would include people finding out, to your point, Brenton, like what is it that people want, doing, you know, engagement with the communities. How can we best get the word out? And it might be social media, or it might be a combination of other things. I know I've hired people to do that assessment for me before. So it's been a long time ago, so I don't know current people. And I know Southeastern actually has a whole program, because they have a student. One time their students did a marketing research analysis for us, and they made that their special project when I used to work at one of the state operated facilities. So I know that that's a possibility, but that way, you know, what, if you're getting your bang for your buck down the road, and it might be just.
Or I don't know if it's something that could be addressed through the Lacan leaders, being that you have a Lacan leader in each region. Maybe they could do more about outreach to schools, you know, to organizations like the Down Syndrome Association or the Autism Society, find out like whenever they have functions, and maybe, you know, we could get the word out that way.
Because I do think that's important. We're always struggling with, we know that there's a lot of families who know about our organization too, but we also know there's a lot who don't. So how do we, and it's hard to figure out, it's like a double negative. How do you reach people you're not reaching right now, but you don't know because you don't know how to get to them? So, yeah. But I think the Lacan leaders are a good idea. They should have their finger more on the pulse in the regions.
And I'll just say, Melinda, in the Lacan contract, the Lacan leaders, they are contracted to do outreaches. I think it may be 12 a year, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, yeah. So it's like 12 outreaches, at least I'll say 12 outreaches a year. And I know some of them do go to organizations like the autism centers in their areas. So I don't know. I guess I'm thinking about how impactful is it. I guess our name still isn't getting out there enough. Just because I know some people don't associate the council with Lacan. They think they're two separate things. And the council, I mean, Lacan is just the advocacy branch of the council. And so, yeah, I mean, we can definitely look into something like this. We don't have the cost, of course, now, because we didn't know that this would come up, so we weren't able to research it. But I mean, we can maybe try to research a cost and bring that back to the council in April.
And another suggestion being that we have the Louisiana Department of Education and she meets with the SPED director. Maybe there could be some type of presentations to the directors and say, hey, let me tell you about Louisiana Developmental Disability. And these directors could take it to the school system and let parents know that they exist. Because I know she says she has meetings with her director. So, maybe could do some type of presentation or something to let them know, or like a brochure or something to, help parents know more about this organization.
There is a lot of chat in the traffic. And I don't know, should we address that?
Was there other discussion on the ABLE accounts at the meeting? I don't remember.
I don't think they talked about it yet. But I think that was under this section,
Okay.
right? Those are their ideas.
We noticed a lot of things in the chat. We are gonna do comments at the end, but if you'd like to say something right now, if you could just raise your hand. Is there a way to check if somebody doesn't know how to raise their hand?
I'm not sure.
Did we do?
Yeah,
Oh,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Kathy.
Yes, thank you. The commenter in the chat does not have access to a camera or a phone. Just like a person with a disability who's not able to speak but only able to type, you need to make chat an accessible accommodation. It would be an ADA requirement. I think the DD Council needs to set that example.
Thank you for the comment.
Which area you said? The protocol, so it's up to you if you wanna receive or not.
Okay, for anyone that does not have the ability to raise their hand, or is that gonna be too difficult?
I don't know.
Are we able to find the person who doesn't? Pascal. Pascal. All right, since Pascal does not have a mic, and if that's okay, we're gonna go ahead and read, her chat.
Okay. As a parent of, this is from Pascal Wynn. As a parent of 7 children and 2 children with DD, I can't even go to work right now and have been isolated in our home with having to have ABA therapy sessions in our home. Having to have ABA therapy sessions in our home and my son only being able to attend school 2 hours a day. This affects my children as well, from going from having an income to having none, put a strain on our family. I'm hoping we can make changes and self-direct where employers can be employees. It's so unfortunate that I'm in our home 24/7 while outside people are constantly in and out of our home and getting paid. And then I have to keep up with all the paperwork, keeping things organized, etc. The list goes on and on. It has become a lot. And then she also says, I wouldn't mind supporting the council on content creating through social media. They need to know what's trending, hashtags, passion, creativity, etc. I agree, marketing definitely needs to be vamped up. And there's some back and forth between her and Jill.
Okay.
That is it for her public
Don't
comment.
name and drop me, Miss Jenkins.
Just kidding. There was some back and forth between her and another participant, unnamed
Thank
participant.
you. I'm just kidding.
Are any of our objectives or things addressing the waiver services right now? Those might be later on.
So in goal two. addresses
Goal two.
the
Okay.
waiver Services, but I think there are rules just in regards to her comment about self-direction and the employer being the employee. So there are rules right now that are preventing that, right, Julie?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
so I don't know if there's something that we can put in y'all's plan that would address that besides advocacy.
Okay.
And I don't know if that would.
Is that something that's being looked at with the self-direction groups? Could you speak to that? Or if not, that's fine. I didn't know.
It did not come up in the initial, so where we are with our self-direction advisory group, and I apologize, I was trying to give an answer to the legislative auditor, so I didn't hear all of the comment. The self-direction advisory group has met twice. And what we did was we went through and gave all of the people that were on the advisory panel an opportunity. We called it a what's working, what's not working exercise, where we kind of went through and from all the perspectives of the different people on there, kind of got a list of things that what we said is, each of these things are pretty large. So we're going to take the list and then we compiled it. We had about 25 things that were identified. We sent it to all of our working group members and asked them to give us their top 5 priorities. And we now have those priorities. So what we're going to now do in our advisory group is take each thing that was mentioned, and based on the priority, we're going to sort of tackle each one of those issues kind of one by one. And then we'll go back and revisit the next 5 after we tackle the top 5. Not that they might be finished, but some may take longer. During that particular session, the issue of the employer and the employee did not arise as one of the issues that was discussed during our what's working and what's not working exercise. So it's not, is it possible that the group will tackle that in the future? Yes, but it wasn't one of the things, because that's the way we'll continue to work this group, is just kind of. And we even said, because a lot of times, one of the things that happens is we sort of get off track with all of the things that may be not working. And so that's why we're trying to tackle one thing at a time. It doesn't mean things can't continue to get added. We just said we're going to tackle the top 5. Then we'll sort of revisit the list we had. Are there any new issues that need to be added? And then just continue to kind of prioritize the top 5.
I like what we do on here, like we have a bunch. Okay.
And so during that meeting, that was not something that was brought up by the panel. If it is brought up by the panel, then what we'll do is add it to our list, consider the group's input in terms of the priority for that, and then tackle it at that time. So CMS, and I get a lot of questions about the CMS. Is that a CMS requirement? It is not a CMS requirement, but I get that question a lot about a lot of things. And the way that it happens is CMS sets general guidelines that we have to follow. And then states have to say, this is what we're doing for those general guidelines. So CMS doesn't usually say you can do this, you can't do this. We have to put in our waiver application. So for example, they say you have to have safeguards and guardrails in place when you have family as paid caregiver. It's up to the state. So this CMS is not telling us what we do and don't have to do. We just have to put that in our application. They have to review it, and then they have to tell us, yes, this meets the requirements, or no, it doesn't meet the requirements. There are also different ways you can do self-direction. There's things called employer authority, and there's also a way that you can do self-direction called budget authority. The way we do it right now is called employer authority. With the employer authority in self-direction, the person or their authorized representative is the employer. They're responsible for hiring, firing, setting the salary for the staff. In budget authority, you can do that a little bit differently. That would take a mass, I'm just letting people know, that is something we're looking at, but that's 2-3 years in the planning, because it's a massive change to the way we do self-direction. But because we have employer authority and that employer is responsible for the hiring, the firing, setting the salary, doing progress notes, we have been told that it is a conflict of interest for that employer to also be the employee, because in essence, they're setting their own salary, they're evaluating themselves. That is why we can't have the employer and the employee. So it's not really CMS. That really was when we look at how our self-direction program, because some people may tell me in other states they can do different things, and that is true. It all depends on how the program is set up. But because of the way ours is set up here in Louisiana, there is what we call a conflict of interest. So if you guys just, again, I know that I've heard from a lot of people that they believe that the authorized representative should be able to be the employee. I'm just letting y'all know that there's really not anything legally. I have been advised that that is what's called a conflict of interest for those reasons. A person can't hire, fire, set their own salary, and evaluate themselves. That is where the conflict of interest arises. So I understand the concern, but I don't know that there's anything that we can do about it unless the plan is to then move. And then there's pros and cons if you go to budget authority, right? So in budget authority, people get a set budget, and then you have to work within that budget. So let's say you have 24 hours of care and you have to pay somebody overtime. Well, the concern there is your overtime comes out of your budget, and so you may have to give up hours to be able to live within that. So there's some challenges there too, which is why I say it's likely it would be a process. It is something I think we need to look at, because a lot of states have moved from employer authority to budget authority. We just have to figure out how it works in our system. But sorry, that was a very long answer to your question, but I cannot change that because I have been told legally that's a conflict of interest with the way that our system is currently set up.
Julie, are the self-determination, are they open meetings, or are y'all just doing the focus groups?
Sure.
right now?
So the Self-Direction Advisory Council or group, and I'm not saying council, honestly, specifically, so I don't have to follow Robert's
It's like a
rules.
group.
I can just have conversations with people. But it's an advisory group. We have 26 members, 20 people who are either individuals with disabilities or family members. We have 2 representatives from local governing entities, 2 representatives from support coordination agencies. And then we have representatives from the 2 fiscal intermediaries, Acumen and Morning Sun, who are part of that group. We meet every second Wednesday. I'm going to have to verify that.
Okay.
What we did is we had people sign in, and we looked across the 20, but we had a lot of people who applied. We tried to make sure we had a representation from folks in urban areas and rural areas. We asked how many hours of service people were getting, and I think we had like 1 to 8, 9 to 16, and 16 to 24. So we tried to look at the kind of people who had different numbers of hours. We asked if the person being supported had complex medical or behavioral needs. So we tried to make sure, we asked all those questions to try to make sure that we had representation from all appropriate groups of people. And so therefore, and then we said it, we do have the meeting open when we do it, people can listen in, but we do ask that the 26 members are the only ones that are able to participate ongoingly in the discussion.
Okay.
But it is open and we are working to record them. And then we are also talking with our advisory group. We're going to be starting quarterly self-direction meetings. So like we have quarterly provider meetings now. It might focus on those things that are relevant for people in self-direction that we share with providers, but there might also be other relevant information. That won't really be like a working session. That really will be more us making sure people in self-direction have an opportunity to hear it. Those for sure will be recorded and placed on our website, because one of the things we hear a lot from people is no matter what day or time we decide to do it, it can't work for everybody. Some people need it after work hours. Some people need it during work hours. Some people want the weekend. Some people want night. So we just have found that if we can record things and then put it on our site, one, people can go watch it whenever they need to. And two, we do closed captioning. So if people need it in different languages, it'll translate to different languages. That's how we're operating that self-direction.
And if they just have a comment, they can just email the group?
Yes, we always give our OCDD info. People can send information in there. And then some of the members have made their information public should people want to reach out to them as part of the advisory group.
Okay, great. Kathy?
Yes, thank you. Julie, do you post a schedule of those self-direction meetings?
Yes, it's on our website.
Okay, and then, kind of, well, I think something maybe the council could work on, and I'm gonna bring this up at SAC too, but this may also be, a LaCan legislative item to keep in mind for, I know not this section, hold on a second. I'm sorry, I'm trying to fix Jenny lunch at the same time. I noticed Virginia just passed a bill that eliminates families having to be the last resort in order to be a paid caregiver. So I think that's something we need to work toward.
Have a last resort law. I was not aware of that.
Sure.
Public comment from Pascal. I would hope that we could take a look at it. I'm also on the self-direction advisory group. But I had to mention it today too, because I'm sure I'm not alone in this situation. California allows it, they just have more in-home visits. It is doable. Thank you, glad I mentioned it.
Thank you, Pascal.
So if y'all have any, so if anybody has any activities that they want to add. I mean, I know we talked about a lot of things. So if there's any that we want to add, that we want to change any cost for, or that we want to get rid of, now is the time.
Specifically for goal one.
Specifically for goal one, that's all we're talking about right now is goal one.
Where it goes.
So yeah, you can go ahead and say that.
So do we do a motion after we do all of them, or just?
We're gonna do a motion at the end. Right now, it's more of just
Okay.
figuring out which ones we want to keep, which ones we want to change.
We'll vote on which ones we want to keep and.
Yeah, I mean, you
Or
don't have
just
to
do it at
vote on
the
it. We're gonna vote just to accept and give to the council at the end.
Okay,
So it's more discussion right now. So if like everybody is okay with it, then we get rid of it or we add to it or whatever.
does anybody want to change the recommendations for goal 1. Is there any comments in the chat? No?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Okay, so what are we recommending specifically, just so that we know? Are you saying, are y'all accepting?
Are
the
we gonna
staff recommendations?
accept the staff recommendations
So,
for objective 1?
so I guess like the first one is the partners, or do
Okay.
y'all want to increase it to the 100,000, keep it the same, increase it more, like those kinds of things?
Okay, what would we like to do for 1.12? Oh, I'm sorry,
1.1.1.
1.1, yeah.
Jill, you can unmute.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Um, so what about, like, no, right now you're saying staff recommendations, but what about when would we talk about getting in the committee recommendations, because these are kind of new, and I know we talked about adding to social media, and we talked about a lot of stuff. I'm just worried that like we're gonna overlook everything and not getting something fit in, because like, so I just think we need I don't know, and this, and maybe it's my head space, but this seems very discombobulated to me.
Staff, does anyone want to?
So Jill, are you saying the recommendations from the council that we received from January, are you asking, should we talk about those now? Or are you, I guess I'm confused about the question.
Like, so we have recommendations from the council members and recommendations from the staff. So like, I'm just confused about like how we're gonna go about all this.
So I guess right now you can look at the current plan, the current FY24 plan. So we can go through, like, I know you guys want to keep partners, right? You want to
Yes.
keep LaCan. We want to keep the advocacy events. We want to keep FHF on our plan. One of the recommendations from staff is to discontinue activity 1.1.5 because we feel like it's covered in 1.1.6.
Right.
So if you guys are in agreement with that, we can take that one off. It doesn't have any funding associated with it.
Wait, what? One happening? 'Cause
1.1.5.
okay, good.
So if you guys are okay with it, we can take that one off because it is covered in 1.1.6.
How come 1.1.5? Okay, never mind. Okay. Cool.
Does anybody disagree with taking 1.1.5 off the plan? Okay.
She's gonna knock it off from there. So
Okay.
I think 1.5 needs to be taken off because it's covered at 1.6.
Right.
And I can make sure that some of the wording from 1.1.5 is included in 1.1.6,
Okay.
just to make sure that we know that it's covered.
I know what I'm missing and like, I know where the disconnect is. So in past planning committees, we've done, we went through the plan multiple times actually, but that for these purposes, we went through the plan doing, picking and choosing what we want for the activities with funding attached. Then we went through the plan, picking out the activities without the funding attached. And that's separate. And I would recommend because the budget, or to me, like when we're going through the items with funding attached, we're like playing with the budget and going back and forth as we go, and like looking at the past budget and making the new budget almost simultaneously. So I just know that we did it in two separate paths, and that made it a lot less confusing. And for me, that made me feel like I was going in it less blindly.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, and actually that is how it is on the agenda. Since we were just going over each goal, we just decided to go over each thing. But we can follow the agenda and go through each contractual activity.
Okay.
And if you guys want to take anything away, that way you'll know what amount for the budget you're working with to create new activities or add to current activities.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Jill. Thank you.
And then we had a staff member keeping up with the budget as we went along.
Did it show up on the big screen, Jill?
Yeah, we'll put it out.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I
Yeah,
understand.
in 2024, when we did.
We're talking about the budgets first.
We wanted to talk about the
24.
budget items first.
Okay.
She wants to follow what we're doing
Okay.
on the agenda. So
Okay.
the only items on here are to discuss were the contractual items. So we can do it like that. That way, once they decide which contractual items they wanna
Okay.
discontinue.
I just.
They'll know
Okay,
how
Okay.
much they're working with to
Yeah.
create new.
okay,
Yeah,
new
okay.
initiatives.
okay. I understand now.
Is that easier for, is that the will of the committee?
I agree. Does anybody disagree? Nope. Okay.
Do y'all think it's easier, staff people?
Thumbs up.
Whatever you want, yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here. This is my first time. I need your help.
So, okay, yeah,
Okay.
I'll think about that. Which is got it already. So then we're gonna move on to goal 2 and just talk about the contractual, is that correct?
Okay.
Just so that I can understand,
Yeah, okay. So everybody got that? We're moving on to goal 2, and we're just gonna focus on the contractual.
Just for right now.
Just for
and then
right
we'll
now
go
with the
back.
funding.
Yeah.
And then we'll go back. We'll back.
Okay,
What was I reading?
and that was my mistake, so I wanted to make sure that, I didn't realize.
I know,
'Cause I had
this is
to
your
do
new-
it, so.
You're new at this too, right? We're learning together.
Kathy, I say to do everything with a funding attached, separate from everything with no funds attached, and that will make going through the plan smoother.
So,
we're gonna follow the agenda, which is what Joe suggested.
the contractual stuff, yeah.
And we're gonna do the contractual first, so that we know kind of what we're gonna have to budget with.
And then.
Thank you, Jill.
And I have one more suggestion.
Yes.
I would make sure that we go back and forth from committee recommendations and staff recommendations, just so we can dot all our T's and cross all our I's. Said that right.
So we can start on goal 2.
Goal
Yeah,
2.
got you.
All right, goal 2, the first contractual activity we have is 2.1.3, navigating systems with co-occurring disorders. That is page 6 if you're looking at the status report. The council contracted with Hustle and Grow, providing training opportunities to improve overall awareness and early recognition of co-occurring intellectual and developmental disabilities and mental health diagnosis for persons with disabilities and their families. The first installment of the in-person trainings focused on how to identify co-occurring IDD and mental health disorders. Hustle and Grow conducted 3 trainings in North, Central, and South Louisiana. Their next set of in-person trainings on trauma-informed and person-centered care for people with IDD, their families. Actually, there's a small change. They just began the ones not on the trauma-informed, but they switched things up a little bit, so that was my bad. They began trainings on de-escalation tactics in times of behavioral health crisis. That training started just a couple weeks ago in the North, and they will be having 2 more trainings on that in the Central and in the South. And they have a couple other trainings coming up. The staff recommends continuing this activity for FY25, but recommends opening the contract up for proposals. Hustle and Grow's initial proposal did not meet the activity and had to be rewritten. Even with these rewrites, the staff feels as though the trainings are not meeting the activity requirements.
Hey,
Page 6
y'all.
of it. What'd you say, Jill?
Can you elaborate on that, Hannah?
I would love to. So, the initial activity when we sent out the solicitation and proposal, the purpose was, this activity was to educate and increase understanding of individuals with disabilities and their family members and caregivers on ways to navigate Medicaid, MCOs, the DD and BH systems. And the entity was supposed to provide statewide trainings to individuals and their families and or caregivers on how to navigate these systems and address existing barriers. And so that proposal was sent out, solicitation proposals. The proposal we received from Hustle and Grow that was selected was focused primarily on, instead of training families and individuals, it was focused mainly on collecting and disseminating information to the council. So we didn't feel like that fit the activity. So we worked alongside Hustle and Grow to try to adjust what they were going to be doing to fit more closely with what the council wanted in that activity. And so it was adjusted, but we do still feel as though the trainings are not focused primarily on the initial intent, which was to assist families and individuals learning how to navigate between these three different systems. The trainings that are set up are how to identify current COING, IDD, mental health disorders, de-escalation tactics in times of behavioral health crisis. A couple other ones, rapid response, trauma-informed and person-centered care training, and how to choose the right behavioral health provider training. Though these are great training topics, we just didn't feel like they fit exactly what the council was requesting for this particular activity. Did that help, Jill?
Immensely.
Oh, score.
Do we want to do a category 2 of like tabling it to see how much is left in the budget? Do y'all ever do that?
That would,
We're recommending it stay at the 30,000.
Okay.
What we're recommending is that you guys maybe consider a different contractor.
Okay.
So just instead of renewing our contract with them, putting it out again to see what proposals
Okay.
we get at.
And what if we don't get anything that we feel fits? We'll just. We
So
don't
did
have
a
to
lot
use
of
that
people
funding.
participate in the training? How is that?
Yeah, I don't know how.
So far, we have had 4 trainings. We only have the numbers for 2 of the trainings. One of them was in November and it had 8 participants, and one was in December and had 8 participants. There was another training in December, but we haven't received the numbers on that one yet. And there was one toward the end of February that we're still waiting on the numbers. So far, we've had 16 people trained between those first 2 training topics.
Did y'all get any feedback from the people who attended training, how they felt about it?
We're still waiting on a decent amount of the surveys to come back. We did receive some, and they were overall satisfied with the training topic. There wasn't a lot of elaboration. It was more of a, did you get something out of this? Yes, no, kind of results. So we don't have a lot of, I don't know, there's not tons of feedback, just a, yes, I got something out of this versus no.
Julie?
So just logistically, if in April we said we want to put it back out again, Hustle and Grow, would we put it back out maybe with some of the lessons we learned about maybe giving more specifics in the proposal that people needed to respond to? And then Hustle and Grow, I guess, would have an opportunity to, I'm just trying to think logistically what would happen. I'm assuming they have the contract until October, but if we decided to put it back out, they would by all means have an opportunity, but we might look at the proposals differently based on what we've learned so far so that we could be a little clearer in terms of what our expectations are and help members look at the responses, just understanding. So it wouldn't necessarily mean that they're not able to do it. It would just be opening back up with more detail. Is that?
I believe with a little more clarification when we're sending out solicitation, but also whenever we get those proposals, that the council, looks, more detailed into what exactly this person's proposing and does it meet the activity?
Is it possible that they could kind of send y'all a clip of the presentation, like, so y'all could see, hey, this is something we would want, or, you know, if it's possible when y'all do the proposal, they could kind of send you like a snippet of what they're gonna be doing?
Yes, they do. They did send that. I believe we had 2 proposals for this particular activity.
Mhm.
And usually with the proposal, they send a little bit of this is what we're planning on doing, with some of the activities and things like that. So I definitely would agree that if y'all decided to send it back out, we could.
So can I ask a clarifying question? So are you asking if they have sent information to us about the information that they're presenting at the training?
Yeah, like a little video or something so that y'all can kind of get an idea. Do y'all look at reviews like from other people who received the training? Just to kind of see, you know, if it's this something that y'all want to accept.
So we requested that, and so like Hannah said, we're waiting on additional surveys, we're waiting on additional numbers from some other trainings that they've completed. We're waiting on the information that they're actually presenting at the trainings as well.
Prior to the proposal, prior to the activity starting, we didn't, because we had to change what they proposed. They didn't go in with the plan to do the trainings. They planned to collect information, then we kind of had to adjust it. So they wouldn't have had that information when they gave the proposal, because it was just a little bit different when the activity started.
I'm just noticing in general, we're not getting a whole lot of people that are like participating in some of these, and I mean, $30,000 is a lot. Have y'all ever done an objective to see what people actually say they'll watch a video of? Like, have we ever compiled data or anything like that?
So this one, like this training is, there's some that are in person and some that are webinars.
Right.
That's just what this contractor is specifically doing. And this was one of the things that last year's planning committee said that needed to be addressed, that there were a lot of individuals with developmental disabilities that also had behavioral health needs. Thank you. I could not think of a word.
Right.
Behavioral health needs and how to really navigate that system. So that was how we wrote the activity for this one.
I mean, it just seems like, I know every state's different, and it seems like we need to bring like the Department of Health in, or they just general trainings, like.
I'm not sure.
But or is it like specific to Louisiana, our system, how to navigate? Or is it just these general?
Now, what the contractor has done so far, they have collaborated with LDH on the topics that they have, which is, so far, I believe they collaborated with them on how to identify co-occurring IDD and mental health disorders. I'm not sure if you're asking about the trainings that they have versus the trainings that y'all are wanting in the activity.
Right. Which ones are we wanting in the activity?
So you're asking like what you all wanted for that particular
Or what was
activity?
the council, what were they trying to accomplish?
Yes.
Was it just general, or was it not constituents, but our clients in Louisiana, here's how you navigate points of contact
Yes.
Yes, it was
in Louisiana kind of thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was originally the solicitation proposals was for individuals with IDD and co-occurring behavioral health conditions. to be served by these three different things, the developmental disability system managed by OCDD,
Okay,
including LGEs and human services districts and authorities,
okay,
Medicaid and the managed care organizations, and behavioral health system. So it was trying to
specific
be
to
training
us.
specifically
Okay.
teaching how do I navigate between OCDD and the LGEs, the MCOs and Medicaid, and
Okay.
the Office of Behavioral Health. along with
Okay,
the
I got it now.
MCOs.
So it's specific to our
Yes.
population. Okay, yeah.
So I think just kind of like what you were saying before, though, there isn't a lot of participation, or we haven't seen a lot of participation in the trainings for the numbers that we have right now. We only have 2 out of the 4 attendees, like the amounts.
Okay.
So that's why our recommendation was, yes, we need to continue this because it is an important topic that the council talked about last planning, but we don't.
I think you're trying to say what I, like, it's not that it's not important.
Yes.
Right.
It's just, is that $30,000 that we could use towards
I mean, it's not that it's important.
addressing more, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, it's not that it's not important, it's just, we don't just want them to take the contract just to be taking the contract. We wanna make sure they doing what they need to do and handle it the way it needs to be handled. I mean, $30,000, that's a lot of stuff we could make sure somebody's doing what needs to be done.
So I think
I'm
that's.
sorry to cut you off though.
No.
But I think that's kind of our feelings, was that if we put it back out for solicitations for the proposals, then we can, since this is the first year that we've done this activity, we can kind of, if we put it back out for proposals, then we can kind of analyze how it is doing in a second year with a different contractor too. That was just kind of our idea to see if there's a way to improve upon it, I guess.
If we did that, could you include in the proposal that one of the things the proposer needed to do is talk about how they were gonna market it? Because I mean, I know we get it out through DD Council, but I think a part of the proposal should be how are they gonna get the word out about?
Yeah, they're the contractor, they need to, we'll have to make that, I don't know if that could be a stipulation maybe.
And we do have in our, I think specifically for this proposal that, or maybe she said it, I don't remember if it was if it was on our part or her part, that had the amount of people that we were trying to train to do these trainings. And I don't know how many more she has left, but how many trainings she has left, do you know?
She has 2 more on the current
And then the 2 that are webinars.
topic, and then there will be, yes.
Is there a way to like write an attendance requirement in the proposal? Like if we don't have X amount of people, or is it something that you really can't do?
I'm not sure about an attendance requirement.
If you don't get
I
so many
mean,
people, then
if
you're not gonna
you-
do it, you're not gonna get paid.
Yeah, if you weigh your options of what is the expense that goes into hosting the training and what kind of return on investment you need to have, I guess you could consider it, just depending on where you go, especially when we're looking statewide, at least with some of our other initiatives. When we go to North Louisiana, don't get a lot of people that show up to those trainings. And then when you come back down to Alexandria, a little bit more. And then when you get into the southern part, we have a whole bunch more people that attend. And so I'd be worried if we say you have to have X amount of people involved in a training, you might not be able to have an opportunity to get outside of maybe a big urban area.
Do we own, like, is it something that we own? It's not something we own, right? It's not a video or something that.
The material.
See, that's an issue too, like, some of these things, if we could transform it into something we could keep, you know, I feel like it would, maybe be more beneficial. I don't know if we can put that in the contract.
I don't know about this contract in particular, but there used to be a clause in all council contracts that we own the rights to all materials that were produced.
Okay, that might be something we can look in
I
the
don't know if it's
bylaws.
still there or not, but it used to be in all of our contracts, and I don't even think. So in our contracts, we have multiple documents, some that we create and some that are in there because it has to be in there through LDH. It might be a LDH lingo that was in there. I don't know if it was just us. But I remember a long time ago having conversations, intense conversations at times about who owned the rights to different materials that were.
Cause it just seems like, yeah, I mean, well, we could keep having the training, or if we have some really good ones, they would last maybe at least
Yeah.
5 years.
And it, to some extent, it's also, at least the initiatives I can think of, it depended on what the initiative was.
Mhm.
So sometimes, yes, we own the rights because we created this program, it's ours, we used it.
Right.
Other times, they created it because this was a national thing or a statewide thing that you could pay them for outside of the council to access. But we paid them to have access to that, so then we didn't necessarily own, but we may have contributed what we thought should be included, at least for our purposes. So it just depends.
Kathy had her hand raised.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing with the previous person said. I'm sorry, I don't know who that was. That was just speaking about maybe requiring a video that then we can just maintain instead of annually, paying someone $30,000 to do something that people don't attend that well. If we had the videos, that could be disseminated, at the appropriate times of the year, depending on what the emergency is, or as reminders for people to participate. And it can include a link to any materials that are going to be attached, or like handouts and so forth. And maybe even an email like Julie does. If anybody has any questions or needs to discuss it further, reach out to us and we'll be happy to help, that kind of thing.
Pascal, are you still doing okay there? I want to make sure we check on her. Okay. So is that something we want to put maybe in the contract? Do I need to make a motion or?
No.
No, not
We
till
need
the
to
end?
make sure that we can.
Oh, okay, okay.
Because I don't think it's
Okay.
in the contracts that we are currently in right now. And if it was in before, I'm wondering why it was
Wasn't.
taken out. So I just want to make sure
Okay.
that we can, as staff, look at that before we say yes.
Okay.
So, oh, I have a question.
Oh, Joe, I'm sorry.
So that was what I was thinking about. So no one on staff really knows why that was taken out of the contracts.
I don't know, Jill. Brenton, do you have any?
I mean, I know I had it on some of the contracts that I worked on, but again, maybe I shouldn't have said the council had it in every contract.
Okay.
But part of the contractual discussion is a negotiation process. We want this, they want that, and we got to meet in the middle. And so sometimes people are putting in time and effort to create their own materials, and they're not willing to just turn that over to us. So that would be a discussion you would have to have, and then a backup plan for, let's take this initiative, for instance. Whatever it is you want them to create that you want to own the rights to, if they tell you no, and that's the contractor you selected, well, what's your backup plan? Because they're gonna walk and you start over again.
Right. Okay.
But if you, like with the videos and stuff that we had created, I mean, they created videos, we have the links, we have those videos saved to our accounts. I don't know that there was ever a discussion of who owns those videos. but we have access to them and we share them at our own will. And so it's, yeah, you have to discuss, I guess.
They're open to the.
But I would have to, I don't have older contracts that I could look at. I'd have to go digging through paper files somewhere to see where that was, what that specific language was.
So do you want to maybe table that one? And see, with the other budgetary items? Or, any suggestion? Staff, any recommendation?
I would say keep the initiative.
Okay.
I think the big question is, do you continue with this contractor, like recommend it remain status quo, or do you try to do an SOP to get a better idea of
Okay,
what can be done, whether this contractor does it or a different one, to fit more in line with what the council's original intent was?
and what happens if we don't get any that we like? What do we do with that?
Send it out again.
You can either send it out again, or you have a conversation about needing to change up your plan.
Okay, okay,
So we should table it until we really find out what's going, really, that we got it going.
okay, so we want to leave the initiative open, but, put it out to more contractors?
That's our recommendation.
Yeah.
That would be
I think-
up to y'all
yeah,
to
no.
decide if that's.
Is that is that what everybody, okay. Okay, we'll go with that.
Then, so I have my agenda.
Okay.
We'll have lunch. Do you want, it's 5 minutes till, so we can break for lunch now and come back at 1. I just don't want to get talking into the next one.
Starving.
And then,
Okay,
I mean, but it's.
Where are
up to
we
you how
on
we
here?
do. So we just did this one.
okay,
And notice I haven't split it, so
Okay.
finish the discussion, so I wasn't sure which one we could get to, so we want to do
Okay.
lunch now. And then come back
Right.
and we can just start here.
yeah, okay. I make a motion that we, stop.
You don't need a motion for lunch.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. We're gonna take a break, for an hour
Just take
for
a-
lunch. Thank you.
And we'll come back at 1.
Okay.
We're gonna do that, it's, no, but